Lisa here.
Hi. I look at this power wheel and I fit mostly into it, and it makes me feel bad. I don't know if anyone else feels like that. So maybe for some people it's the best time to be alive, or it's the best time, and whatever metric makes you feel that way. But even with all this power that I see here for myself, like I carry a lot of guilt with that.
Would you like a response or just a statement?
Sure.
I want to
John,
be really.
I'm
Yep, never mind. Good. It's all good.
I want to just sit with that for a moment, because I think there are implications of feeling the privilege of being, would you say the privilege of being white and having wealth?
All of these things. I don't think I'm split. Like honest face. That's it. And I think I'm doing okay
What do you feel is at the root of that guilt? Because I think it's a collective.
That, you know, where I live, my education, my income, provide me so many opportunities that other people can't have. And like, what did I do to deserve that? And why can't other people get to that same level? Because of who they are. That's not fair.
Or what do you do with it?
Well, right.
There's my guilt.
Yeah.
You know, you've been given all this. What have I done other than pay taxes?
Yeah.
Right?
How can I change it? How can I make it better? I don't know how.
Okay, John.
Throw the chart away. It is, and I mean this respectfully. And my wife is very similar, by the way. So I don't know you, but I know my wife really well after 32 years. So I won't look at you, because I mean it respectfully. Throw the chart away. Seriously, do not feel guilt about who you are as a human being. Stop it. Do you remember that Bob Newhart show? You remember the original show? Stop it. If you care about another human being, I honor you. I really do. But if you care about another human being, find out what they want and how you can help them. What talent do they provide? What skill set? What work ethic? What passion? What care? What hobby? What interest? Listen to them. Listen more, because they probably just give you some BS like we're talking about tonight. You got to listen to them. If they drink with them. If they want to walk with them. Find out who they are as a human being and ask what they really want. And mostly it's safety. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's security. And then love, way up there. Self-actualization, way up there. Help people. If you're privileged, which I hate that word, and actually I don't. I'm actually in the crowd of conservatives that I don't actually mind the word. But 50% of America hates it. I'm just trying to prove a point. I don't mind the word. I think it's actually an okay word. But if you use that word with 50% of America, you're going to lose them. So don't use it. Translate. Figure out how to help people. Please, please, please. And I don't care if you know them. I encourage you to help people that you know. But if you want to help strangers that you'll never meet, please do that. Use your power to help people.
So I'm going to weigh in on this a little bit. As a facilitator, I'm not neutral. I'm modeling for you how to have a conversation about this. So I have an opinion on these things too. One of the questions that we got from the last community conversation, they knew that this was going to be the next topic. This was the question that they raised. What obligations, if any, do people who enjoy economic and or social privilege owe to the rest of society? And so,
repeat that, please.
yeah. What obligations, if any, do people who enjoy economic and or social privilege owe to the rest of society? And so I'm going to get a hand raised. Do you feel like you, wherever you are on this wheel of privilege, have an obligation to the rest of society? Okay. Are you someone who feels like you don't have an obligation to the rest of society?
Oh, Julie.
You know what's funny is I'm very generous, caring, and do a lot of things.
Hold on, we're gonna get you a microphone.
I know, now I feel bad. Is that on? Did you press it? No, it's interesting that I feel that way because I'm actually, I would give anything I have to anybody, and I have so many volunteer things with just all over the place, justice and voting and blah, blah. Anyway, but, I guess I feel like it has to come from within a person, and I've struggled in my way that I've struggled, and I am privileged in a lot of ways, but I think everyone has their own struggles to deal with, and I'm who I am because of the choices and the hard work that I put into it to get where I am. And I feel like that's an individual thing, but I think what's different is I had the opportunity because I came from a stable, somewhat stable household, I don't think anyone comes from a stable household, but anyway, you know, I was fortunate because I always had a roof over my head, I always had food on the table, and I had people who loved me. So that was able to give me the support to make choices in my life. So, I don't know if that all makes sense.
Yeah,
But I feel
here's
like-
what I know. I know that we can all be compassionate and have empathy, and we can see somebody in need, and we can offer assistance whenever ways we can do that, right? But from an individual standpoint, we lack the organizational capacity to affect systemic change. And what we're dealing with when you talk, you know, Representative Mabry, about a lack of housing shortage and budget priorities that put an industrial complex above, you know, having basic housing or having a quality education system for every child. What we have are some systemic inequities that have continued to be perpetuated over time, that no amount of individual compassion and caring is gonna change. And yet, when we're all in this room together and we raise our hand, that is the vast majority of people that are on the same page. So then we have to ask ourselves the question, if all of us, citizens, taxpayers, feel a social obligation to the rest of society, then why are the gaps so extreme? Why are the inadequacies continuing to be persistent? And we're gonna be low on time here, and so I'm gonna open it up for just a couple more questions, and then we're gonna have final thoughts here. But I think, you know what, I am hoping that everyone takes away from this conversation, is a clearer understanding of where do you land on what's gonna be my contribution. Not do you have a contribution, not do you care about society, but what do you see as your role? And so if anybody wants to weigh in and talk about that or share, and it doesn't have to be along those lines, it can be really anything. But I think I really applaud all of you, because these are tough conversations to have. You know, we all seem to say, yeah, we believe that there should be affordable housing, and yet that is a contentious decision. That has so controversial conversation in every municipality in this state. There isn't one state that says, yeah, we're all behind, you know, affordable housing and we're gonna do it, we're gonna have the most affordable housing in our municipality. So, I love that when you went to people and asked them the question, don't you think that people should have affordable housing? They said yes. Unfortunately, sometimes the sacrifices that come with getting those decisions, I don't think we're seeing them. Would you all agree with that? Yeah. So, okay, questions. I have one in the back, and then you're next, and you're gonna be our last two.
The one big thing I noticed in this room was after, I think it was Darcy, made her statement, that the responses, is it on?
If you could just speak a little closer.
All right.
Yeah.
Is that better? Okay. One of the things I noticed was after Darcy made her statement, and I didn't notice it quite as much before, was immediately the responses divided politically. It became people that cared were liberal, people that didn't care were conservative. And that's not true. It's absolutely, positively not true.
If I implied that,
No,
that is
no.
not what I meant.
I, just in general, the whole room kind of moved, I just stood here and watched it, I'm short, and I wanted to see, so I stand up. And, I noticed that right away, but I notice it everywhere these days. Immediately, if you think one thing, if you say a statement about one thing, the sky is blue, you must be liberal. No, it's not, it's something else, then you must be conservative. And on this particular chart, which is very interesting and has a lot of really good information, the one title that I don't see on here is human. We are all human, and we all start as human. We all wear that label. I hate the labels. Every single one of them, I don't care why, but I just hate them. Because they have divided us so much. We don't even include the most common one. We're human, all of us. And now we're supposed to dislike somebody because they don't wear this label, or they do wear that label, or they put themselves under this banner. And I'm confused by it, and I'm frustrated by it. But in this election season, no one talked about what we needed as a society, what was best for the communities. It was hate on each other. And we accept that. We in this room have to accept our responsibility with that because we take it. And it's been going on for years and years and years. Talk about how much money the industrial complex spends, which I totally agree with what you said. How much did that frickin' election cost? And what did we get for it? I don't care who your candidate was, we got nothing.
How many felt like the political discourse of this past election was constructive and beneficial to the society as a whole?
In this country, we didn't even get to choose the two candidates that ran for the highest office. The parties chose them. Think about that for a minute. The parties chose them. And we have been giving our power to the parties. What's the parties doing for us?
So on the subject of power, what do you see as the way forward?
We need to change the way the political system works in this country, and we have a right to do that. An example of us being denied that right was 2016, when the open primary issue was on the ballot. The intent was one ballot, all candidates, every registered voter could vote for whatever candidate they wanted to, Republican, Democrat, mix that up. People think, well, that's what we got. We didn't. What we got, because the two parties worked together to deny us that right. I'm an independent, so I get both ballots. I can only vote on one ballot because the parties together decided that's what was gonna happen. The parties together gave Kent Thury, the man that paid for that, his money back, together. I cannot emphasize enough how much the political parties work together all the time. But when it comes to listening to us, they don't. We have to change that, and we're the ones that change it. Sorry, none of the people elected are gonna do it because it's gonna affect their power. We need more than two parties in this country, and they're not gonna let us do it unless we fight for it. That's what we need to fight for, not red, not blue, not labels. Sorry.
I completely agree, but I think that it's not necessarily the party, it's the donors behind the party. And I think we don't have a real choice in our congressional elections, for example, because both candidates in competitive congressional races are dependent on basically the same donors. And so they run the same campaigns. I mean, the Yadira Caraballo and Gabe Evans campaign, other than the issue of abortion, which is absolutely critical, but other than that issue, they basically were running the same campaign, because they didn't want to talk about the issues that were impacting everyday people, because the donor class doesn't want the current status quo broken, because they've never been making more money. And so I agree that the system is completely broken. I would like to see more voices have an opportunity to rise to the top. I think that the problem is money in politics, and you know, that is why, you know, a point you made, why is there such a difference? Everybody here in this room, it seems like we can agree on 9 out of 10 things. Why doesn't the policy reflect that? I, again, believe that it is the power of money in politics, because then these politicians, they come here, and this district right now, your congressman is Jason Crow. He's a Democrat. He comes here, he speaks in general, broad, vague platitudes. Every member of Congress speaks in general, broad, vague platitudes, except for like AOC and like 3 others. And it's toxic. And it is why people no longer believe in democracy. Because the voters are not, the politicians aren't responsive to the voters, they're responsive to the donors.
Do you think campaign finance reform is gonna solve it?
We need a constitutional amendment for campaign finance reform, because the United States Supreme Court said that money was speech, and that's the problem. We can't pass a law saying you are limited in what you're spending in these campaigns because of the Citizens United decision and the Buckley v. Vallejo decision before it.
But if we could,
Yes.
okay.
A constitutional amendment.
Yes,
Yes,
it
we
would take a
should.
constitutional
We
amendment.
should.
Yes.
Agreed.
Does anybody disagree with that? Okay.
Oh, Bill.
I like that they both just agree.
I know, I know, see, it's possible. Okay, there was one right here, and if you could keep it short, yeah, thank you.
So I have one comment and one question. The comment is, it's interesting that I think almost everybody would vote for term limits, but they never bring that up because they're interested in her. But my question is in regard to housing and the ADUs issue that passed in Denver. And I have a weird opinion of that, because I think it's sort of a privilege thing, because you have to have money to be able to build an ADU in your backyard. And a lot of people in Denver, you know, I think what I've read is it could be used for a mother-in-law place or for your adult children to come in and live, which I don't know that it would necessarily be affordable housing in general. So just kind of your take on that as a representative.
Representative Mabry, if you would answer that question and then just follow with your final thoughts, and then we'll go on down the line here.
First point on term limits. In the state, we are term limited. I am heading into my 3rd of 8 years, and I like the term limits. The second piece, so the housing problem is not, there's no silver bullet solution. The ADU one certainly is not one, because I'm privileged enough to own a home in Denver, and to build a ADU on my property would cost about $350,000. I don't have $350,000. I'm probably not going to get approved for that loan. Maybe, I don't know, but I don't want it, even if I did apply for it. And so yes, in that sense, it is going to be difficult to access. There are ideas behind programs that will finance ADUs with conditions that say if you get the finance program, then you're going to rent it out as an affordable unit. I support policies like that. And the second point I want to make about it is just that adding more supply, the theory is adding more supply will reduce the cost of housing. I don't buy that with ADUs, because there's not going to be enough built to actually impact the housing shortage that we have. But, and we might, no, I voted for it, and the reason why is because at the bottom line, I actually think that somebody that owns their property should be able to build an ADU on it if they want to, and this is probably an area where
I'm more
we
conservative.
agree. Yeah, and actually a lot of the Republicans were against it, and I went down to the well and I was like, come on guys, I thought you guys like private property, what's up? And so anyways, I don't think it's gonna solve the issue. I think people generally should be able to do it, and I support programs that provide financing for them that include conditions that will require them to remain affordable. And then, my closing point, I think goes back to, the heart of what I've said a lot tonight. Our politics has moved away from talking about economic issues, and the reason why is because neither party wants to upset the class that finances their campaigns. And I think a lot of the conversations that we're having tonight about why is DEI so hot? What about the woke agenda? Well, that's because the Republican Party and Donald Trump realized that people are angry right now. People are angry right now because 69% of this country has less than $1,000 saved. 69% of this country has less than $1,000 saved. That means if you lose your alternator in your car, you are screwed. And that is why I see so many people coming in to our eviction clinic who were working and cannot afford housing. People are mad. My generation is the first generation since World War II that is worse off than my parents' generation. People are upset. The economy is not working for working people, and we fell into a trap of saying the economy is good if the S&P 500 is good. That is not true if you're living paycheck to paycheck. And so Trump named a villain. Trump named a villain. He said the villain is immigrants, the villain is the woke agenda, the villain is DEI. He's wrong about all of it. He's scapegoating vulnerable communities who need our protection and need us to stand up and fight for them. And the Democratic Party advocated the space and did not run the campaigns that they used to run. Bernie Sanders talking about corporate elites holding working people down. Barack Obama used to talk about that too. We just advocated the space. We didn't have a villain. People are angry. And then it made it easier for Trump to create villains out of vulnerable communities.
And I'm gonna give everybody just one more minute of final thoughts.
Sorry.
Just out of consideration for the clock, I'm sorry.
How do I follow that? Let's see, some items that were touched upon earlier, some of the things I said. I heard the term meritocracy. We were talking a little bit about guilt. As a really hard worker my whole life, I think I've been getting paid for doing something since the age of about 8. I always believed in meritocracy. Unfortunately, the concept of pulling oneself up by one bootstraps works when you're generally fitting more of in the center of the wheel that we just handed out. So someone like myself and others that feel like we are there, we could use that term all we want to, and what it really means is I have enough privilege that everything I think I accomplished, I 100% think it was because of me and meritocracy. I think that is false. Although I still believe in meritocracy and its portions. So I think it's really an act of self-reflection. When someone says, what am I gonna do? Can I change a constitutional amendment? No, I cannot. Can I make actions that do that? I can. Do I wanna do things that are more local? I can start to look at the wheel or the diversity aspect and say, well, where do I have privilege? And where do I think I should be putting some efforts to help others that don't? And what strikes me, if I want to pick out one area, go for it. If I want to peanut butter spread my stuff across other areas, do that. But it's a self-reflection that really is that aspect.
And I appreciate ending on that important comment.
Do I still get one full minute?
One full minute, John. One full minute.
I told you to be impressed with this panel. Aren't they just amazing? Seriously, I really like these. I beg you to do something that you may or may not have done. I've done it. I did it before tonight, and I did it 5 years ago. Just Google me. Care for Dreamers. These are people that have brought to America through no choice of their own. It's a matter of American jurisprudence. You can't have mens rea, guilty mind. You did not break the law if your parents brought you across the border. We, by Supreme Court decision, have to provide them with an education. I think that's a good thing, so they're not hidden behind underground in the shadows. They go to our public schools. We educate them for 5 or 10 or 15 years. They go to college. Their little brothers or sisters are probably U.S. citizens. They're probably married to a U.S. citizen. They may have children that are U.S. citizens. And what are we doing? I'm telling you, we're not doing enough. We need to stand up for those young men and women. Some of them are still kids, but some of them are in their 30s now. And we're going to deport them? Really? You want to care about poverty? You want to care about privilege? Use your power and privilege to care for people like the Dreamers. We can argue about the nuances of their parents or their grandparents or they've been here 30 years. Care for those little kids and young men and women. Thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate you all.
I want to go quickly back to something that Joan said about bootstraps. It reminds me of one of my favorite things that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said. And he said, if this is not an exact quote, but this is the spirit of it, you tell them to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. But what if they have no boots? And I think that's such an important statement. You mentioned humanity and seeing everyone's humanity. I think that is very important, and I think it's really important to recognize where we align and where we're the same. But I also ask you to look at each other's differences, because when you look at somebody's differences, even if they're different than you see them holistically, and you respect them for their unique challenges. So I think that that's also important, and also find that common ground. And last but not least, please support your local news organizations. This is not a personal plug here. I just think the media has been vilified, and in some ways rightfully so. I understand why people are mad with the media, but your local journalists live in your community. I live here, I pay taxes here, I care just like you. I don't just pop up in a city council meeting, file a report, and go home. I really think about what I just saw because it affects my life just like it affects yours. So please support your local journalists.